It often comes as a surprise when I tell folks there are genuine lakes and rivers on the floor of the seas. It seems entirely bizarre, I know, but it's absolutely true. These features are the result of salt deposits underneath the seafloor itself. As seawater mixes with these deposits, it becomes incredibly saline and, in the right conditions, it can seep into depressions and other features. Because it's so much more saline than the surrounding water, it does not mix, creating lakes and even flowing rivers miles under the water. These lakes and rivers are an extremely strange habitat. Fields of mussels, tube worms, and other filter feeders crowd their shores, providing shelter from a myriad of small crustaceans. We're not really sure why these creatures huddle around the salty water just yet, as these subsea lakes are deadly to any life that is silly or unfortunate enough to enter them. Or so I thought, anyway. Just last week, I was diving one of these lakes in the depths of the Gulf of Mexico as part of an expedition to survey any lasting damage done to benthic ecosystems following the Deepwater Horizon incident. The bottom of the ocean is often overlooked in the immediate fallout from an incident like this. But oil will sink eventually, and it's arguably a worse problem when it does, because it begins to work its way into the food chain. This starts with filter feeders, so a huge mat of mussels had to be high on our list. We were running a tandem operation, 2 one-man subs surveying either side of the lake and looking for any signs of disease or die-offs in the mussel beds. Deep-sea science is surprisingly boring work most of the time. You're stuck at the bottom of the ocean in a tiny little sphere, looking at an awful lot of mud. Or in this case, endless fields of mussels, punctuated by worms and traversed by spindly-legged crabs. It was eerily beautiful, but tedium set in quickly. I've been sweeping the field for quite a while when I noticed a definite dead patch spreading from the edge of the toxic lake. Green mussels were blackened and cracked. Their shells no longer fed minerals by the organisms within. Towards the lake itself, the mollusks were caked in salt, as though the lake itself was splashing over them. That was strange. Whilst lakes like this definitely have waves, this one was quite deep and calm for the most part, and the effects of the salt were confined to a small area. It was as though the water was only sloshing out of the lake in this one particular spot. There was a fair swath of dead mussels, enough that I felt like it was significant. So I set off in their direction and started digging out samples. I started at the very edge of the patch, which, on closer inspection, spanned a good 50 square meters or so. I was so engaged with operating the delicate arms of the submersible that I didn't notice the waves at first. But they caught my eye as they lapped over the edge of the mussel bed, disturbing the crystallized shells on the lakeshore. It was strange. There was no real reason for there to be waves at that point. The sub was holding steady, and the current was weak. For a moment, I wondered if the other submersible was coming over the lake for some reason, but the lack of lights made that seem unlikely. I couldn't see any reason for the lake's surface to be disturbed at all, but the waves were actually getting bigger. The ebb of the oily black water was mesmerizing, rhythmically washing over the shells of long-dead mollusks, the lights gleaming off salt crystals set down by innumerable waves. As the ripples intensified, something utterly impossible happened. The surface of the benthic lake was broken, and something hauled itself out onto the poisoned shells. I stared for a moment, not comprehending exactly what I was seeing. Nothing could live in that toxic water, and yet something horrific had just appeared from its depths. The creature that rose from the dark lake was like nothing I'd ever seen. Around 5 meters long, it carried itself on 12 spindly legs, which branched out of an armored carapace, almost as black as the abyssal sea around us. These legs extended above the actual body of the creature, knee joints several feet above its back, turning them back down towards the seafloor. At the front of a stocky carapace, something like a torso sprouted upright, looking somewhat like a twisted conglomeration of mantis incrustation. From the torso, 6 more limbs sprouted, 4 tipped with long spiny pincers, and the upper pair ending in a scythe-like structure, as though its top claw had elongated and sharpened. There was no head to speak of, but 4 frilled antennae waved like Christmas tree worms in the gentle current, twitching this direction and that in response to unseen stimuli. In this job, I've seen plenty of bizarre things, but the sight of this creature filled me with a sense of dread so pure, I felt physically ill. I had the distinct sense that I was seeing something no human was ever supposed to see, something utterly incomprehensible. I've never been so grateful for the inches of steel that protected me, not only from the crushing pressure of the deep, but from the dismal thing that had crawled out of that lake. After a few moments, the creature turned towards the submersible, and despite there being no eyes, or seemingly any place for eyes to be, I felt as though it was looking straight through the steel and into my eyes. I felt an unbearable pressure in my head as the thing turned my way, the thumping agony of 1,000 migraines rolling through my brain until I could no longer see, hear, or even feel anything but white noise. It was interminable, yet when it stopped, I felt hollow and empty, unable to bear the sudden silence. There was no sensation whatsoever of time, but when I came to, I was in the infirmary on board the ship. To my amazement, I had been out for over 2 days. The other submersible had come to investigate why I was out of contact, and found me slumped over the controls, convulsing. They had dragged the vehicle back to the surface and fished me out totally unresponsive. I had absolutely no memory of anything beyond the creature, and something inside me thought revealing that would be a bad idea. So I said nothing, clinging to my lost memory. I found the quiet of the infirmary thunderously loud somehow, an aching absence of sound. I decided to get some fresh air out on the deck, watching the dark waters of the Gulf slip past as I leant against the rail, glad to be free of the silence. Gazing into the deep waters used to bring me a sense of calm, but now I realized I felt nothing but that pure, sickening dread, and a nagging sensation in the back of my brain, like I was forgetting something important. Try as I might, though, I couldn't quite get it. In fact, lying here in hospital, waiting for more tests that will find nothing, I still can't quite figure out what it is I saw in that lost time. I do know one thing, though. That creature is something horrendous. Something that I will regret seeing for the rest of my life. I cannot abide silence anymore, and the sound of the ocean fills me with dread on a level far beyond that of simple fear. The kind of dread I imagine a stricken lamb feels upon catching a glimpse of a wolf in the undergrowth. I don't think I have to know the specifics of what I saw at the bottom of the gulf, because my body is telling me unequivocally. We have all these ideas and plans for the end of the world. We think it'll come from space, or from nuclear war, or disease, but we're wrong. I don't know what I saw, but every instinct within me knows what it meant. There's something awful living far beneath the sea, and it will eventually be the end of life as we know it. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments below, and tell me what you thought of this narration. Make sure to follow me on Twitter for updates, and if you'd like to get early videos, shoutouts, and much more, I'd appreciate it if you check out my Patreon page. It's a place where you can help support my channel while getting awesome rewards in the process, and every pledge helps out a ton, no matter the size. So if you'd like to see all the rewards I offer and consider becoming a patron, it'd mean a ton to me if you'd click the link in the description and just check it out. And don't forget to show some love to the amazingly talented authors who make these narrations possible. Have a good night, everybody. Cheers.